The coffee was still warm when my wife told me she wanted to sleep with other men. I set down my mug on the granite countertop. $16,000 of imported stone that I'd paid for with blood money from 3 tours in Afghanistan and 10 years of clawing my way through Boston real estate. The kitchen was silent except for the hum of our Sub-Zero refrigerator, another trophy from my success that apparently meant nothing to the woman sitting across from me. "Jonathan," Scarlett said, her voice carrying that practiced sweetness she used with difficult clients at her boutique. "We need to talk about us. 22 years of marriage. I should have seen this coming. The late nights at yoga class that somehow never improved her flexibility. The new underwear that I never got to see. The way she'd started putting her phone face down during dinner like it was radioactive. But Scarlett wasn't alone in this kitchen ambush. Our daughter Willow sat beside her mother, 23 years old and armed with a psychology degree from Emerson College that she wielded like a weapon. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore that self-righteous expression she'd perfected since returning from her semester abroad in Amsterdam. "Dad, you need to understand that marriage is an outdated social construct," Willow said, her voice dripping with the kind of academic condescension that made me want to check her trust fund balance. "Mom's been researching polyamory, and it's actually a very healthy way to—" "Stop." I raised my hand, and 20 years of military training kicked in. My voice was calm, measured, deadly. "Let your mother speak." Scarlett shifted in her chair, suddenly looking less confident. "Good. She should be nervous." "I've been seeing someone," she said. "His name is James. He owns that new restaurant downtown, Crimson. You know, the one that got written up in Boston Magazine?" I knew James. Hell, I'd helped him get the loan for that restaurant. Sat with him for 3 hours at Legal Seafoods 2 years ago, explaining how to structure his business plan to impress the bank. Gave him contacts, made introductions, even invested $50,000 of my own money to get him started. The irony was so thick I could taste it. "How long?" I asked. 6 months. Scarlett's hands fidgeted with her wedding ring, a 3-carat princess cut that had cost me more than my first car. "Jonathan, I don't want to hurt you, but I need more. We both do. People aren't meant to be monogamous. It's not natural." Willow nodded eagerly. "Exactly. Dad, you should download Tinder or Bumble. There are tons of women your age who'd love to date a successful older man. Think of it as an opportunity for growth." I almost laughed. My own daughter was giving me dating advice while my wife confessed to adultery in the kitchen I'd renovated with my own hands. The house that I'd bought, paid for, and maintained while Scarlett played boutique owner with her trust fund hobby business. "So, let me understand this correctly," I said, my voice still eerily calm. "You want an open marriage. You're already sleeping with James, and you think I should just smile and download a dating app?" "Don't be sarcastic, Jonathan." Scarlett's mask was slipping. "This is about evolution, about refusing to be trapped by conventional thinking. James makes me feel alive again. When was the last time you made me feel alive? When was the last time I made her feel alive? When I carried her over the threshold of this house? When I held her hand during her mother's funeral? When I worked 18-hour days to build the real estate empire that paid for her yoga classes and organic groceries and designer handbags? But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I nodded slowly. "Fine." Scarlett blinked. "Fine? You want an open marriage? Fine. But I make the conditions." The silence that followed was electric. Willow looked confused. Scarlett looked hopeful. Neither of them understood what they'd just unleashed. I walked to the kitchen sink and turned on the faucet. Water hissed against stainless steel. "First condition," I said without turning around. "This is my house. My name on the deed. My name on the mortgage. My money that bought every stick of furniture and every appliance. The prenup we signed protects all of it." I could feel them processing this behind me. "What does that mean?" Willow asked. I turned off the water and faced them. "It means your mother can explore her polyamorous lifestyle. She can date James or anyone else she wants. But she'll do it as a guest in my house, following my rules." Scarlett's face had gone pale. "Jonathan, that's not—" "Fair?" I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "You're absolutely right. Fair would be divorce. Fair would be you getting half of everything I've built while you were playing entrepreneur with Daddy's money. Fair would be me taking everything you've said to my lawyer tomorrow morning." The kitchen was dead silent except for the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Tick, tick, tick. "So here's how this works," I continued. "You want to modernize our marriage? Great. But my house, my rules. You want to date James? Fine. but you'll clear all overnight stays with me first, like a teenager asking permission. You want to use my money to fund your dating life? We'll see about that. I pulled out my phone and opened the Wi-Fi settings, changed the password from Scarlet Archer 2002 to something they'd never guess. The internet is off limits until you agree to my terms, I said. The joint checking account, which is actually just my account with your name on it, that's frozen until we renegotiate. The Lexus in the garage? That's in my name too. Willow jumped up. Dad, this is emotional abuse. No, sweetheart. This is called consequences. Your mother wants to act single while enjoying the benefits of being married. But marriage is a contract, and contracts have terms. I walked to the kitchen island where my keys sat, picked up the remote for my 1967 Corvette Stingray, a cherry red beauty I'd restored myself over 5 years of weekends. It was parked in the two-car garage next to Scarlett's Lexus and the Jeep I'd bought Willow for college. I'll be moving my car to the spot Willow usually parks in, I said. She can street park from now on. Build character. You can't do this. Scarlett stood up, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. This is my home too. No, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. This is my house that I've allowed you to live in. Huge difference. And if you don't like the new arrangement, there's the door. I headed toward the garage, but stopped at the kitchen entrance. Oh, and Scarlett, give James my regards. Tell him I said thanks for taking such good care of my investment. The slam of the garage door behind me was louder than any scream. Underscore, 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 Ron Jeremy, yes, that was really his name, and yes, he'd heard every joke, had the kind of corner office that screamed success. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Boston Harbor, and his diplomas from Harvard Law were arranged like trophies behind his mahogany desk. We'd been roommates at Boston College 25 years ago, back when Ron was just another Irish kid from Southie with big dreams and bigger attitude. Now he was the most feared family law attorney in Massachusetts, and exactly the weapon I needed. You beautiful bastard, Ron said, pouring 2 glasses of 18-year-old Macallan. I've been waiting 20 years for you to walk through that door with a case like this. I sat in the leather chair across from his desk and accepted the whiskey. The burn was smooth, expensive, perfect, like everything else in Ron's world. Tell me you got it all on tape, he said. Every word, the confession, the demands, even our daughter coaching her mother through the conversation. Ron's grin could have powered the building. Audio and video, hidden cameras in the kitchen and living room, all legal since it's my house and I live there. Massachusetts is a one-party consent state for recordings. Jesus, Mary and Joseph! Ron leaned back in his chair. Your wife just handed us everything we need to protect every penny you've got. The meeting lasted 2 hours. By the end, we had a strategy that would make Sun Tzu weep with pride. First, the postnup. Ron would draft an agreement that protected all my assets, the house, the investment properties, the business accounts, even my retirement funds. Scarlett could sign it or face immediate divorce proceedings with evidence of her affair. Second, surveillance. The cameras I'd already installed were just the beginning. Ron had contacts who could legally monitor Scarlett's communications, track her spending, document her activities. Everything above board, everything admissible in court. Third, financial lockdown. Every shared account would be frozen pending the postnup negotiations. Every credit card would be canceled. Scarlett wanted independence. She could have it, along with the responsibility that came with it. The beauty of this, Ron explained, is that she opened the door. She wants an open marriage? Fine. But she's going to get exactly what she asked for, complete transparency. No secrets, no hidden expenses, no running around behind your back. I took another sip of whiskey. What about retaliation claims? Emotional abuse? With what evidence? You're not threatening her. You're not preventing her from leaving. You're simply protecting your assets and requiring honesty in your marriage. Any judge in the state would side with you. Ron pulled out a legal pad and started writing. Now, let's talk about the surveillance footage. How much have you got? 3 weeks' worth. Dates with James, lies to me, Willow helping her cover her tracks. It's all there. Perfect. We'll need that organized chronologically. Dates, times, activities. Build a timeline of deception. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. I wouldn't have to raise my voice or throw a punch or break any laws. I would simply use the legal system and basic contract law to turn Scarlett's betrayal into her own prison. One more thing, Ron said as I stood to leave. What's your end game here? Because we both know you could divorce her tomorrow and walk away clean. I paused at his office door, looking out at Boston Harbor, where container ships moved like chess pieces across dark water. Why would I want to leave her, Ron? The goal isn't to escape the game. The goal is to make sure she wishes she'd never asked to play. Ron's laugh followed me all the way to the elevator. Underscore, 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 Crimson was the kind of restaurant that tried too hard to impress. Exposed brick walls, Edison bulb fixtures, and a menu that described everything in elaborate French terms. The kind of place that charged $30 for fish and chips just because they called it traditional New England codfish with hand-cut pommes frites. I sat at the bar nursing a bourbon while watching James work the dining room. He was younger than me by maybe 5 years, with the kind of artificially maintained appearance that screamed insecurity. Hair transplant, teeth whitening, probably some work done around the eyes. The type of man who drove a leased BMW and told everyone it was paid for. Scarlett had been here twice this week. Tuesday night, she'd told me she was having dinner with her sister. Thursday, she'd claimed book club ran late. Both nights, the GPS tracker on her car, installed by Ron's investigator, had led directly to Crimson's parking lot. My phone buzzed. A text from Scarlett. Working late at the boutique tonight. Don't wait up. It was 7:30 p.m. on a Friday. Scarlett's boutique closed at 5 p.m. and hadn't stayed open late once in the 5 years since she'd opened it. But sure enough, 15 minutes later, she walked into Crimson wearing a black dress I'd never seen before. She looked beautiful. Radiant, even. The kind of glow she used to have when we were dating, when everything was new and exciting and full of possibility. It occurred to me that I hadn't seen her look this happy in years. That realization should have hurt more than it did. I watched James greet her with a kiss that was definitely not appropriate for a casual acquaintance. Watched him lead her to a corner booth where they could whisper and touch hands across the table like teenagers. Watched my wife of 22 years act like she was single and loving every minute of it. The bourbon burned, but not as much as the confirmation that everything I'd suspected was true. I finished my drink, left $40 on the bar, and walked out without either of them noticing me. On the way to my car, I made a phone call. Hello, Crimson Restaurant. I'd like to make a reservation for 2 tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. The name? Archer. First name? Jonathan. Underscore, 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 underscore. Saturday evening, I arrived at Crimson exactly on time, wearing my best suit and escorting Maria Santos, James's 25-year-old daughter. Maria was a paralegal at a competing law firm, intelligent and ambitious and absolutely stunning. We'd met at a charity auction the previous month, and she'd mentioned her father's new restaurant. What she hadn't mentioned was that her father was sleeping with my wife, but I had mentioned it to her when I'd called to ask her out. Are you sure about this? Maria asked as we walked into Crimson. This feels like using me to make a point. Maria, let me be clear, I said. I like you. I think you're beautiful and smart and interesting. If things were different, I'd ask you out because I genuinely want to get to know you better. But things aren't different. So I'm asking you out because I want to watch your father's face when he realizes I know exactly what he's been doing with my wife. She laughed, actually laughed. You know what? I respect the honesty. And I've been wanting to see Dad squirm ever since he started acting like a teenager with a new girlfriend. James spotted us the moment we walked in. I watched his face cycle through confusion, recognition, and pure terror in about 3 seconds. He rushed over to our table, his professional smile looking more like a grimace. Jonathan, what a surprise. I didn't know you were dining with us tonight. James. I stood and shook his hand, squeezing just a little harder than necessary. I'd like you to meet my date, Maria Santos. Maria, this is James, the owner of Crimson. We're old friends. Maria smiled sweetly. Hi, Dad. The color drained from James's face like water from a broken glass. Behind him, I could see other diners starting to stare. The hostess looked confused. A waiter dropped a tray in the kitchen with a crash that echoed through the restaurant. Maria, James said weakly, I didn't know you were dating. Oh, we're just getting to know each other, I said. Maria tells me she's working at Patterson and Associates now. Family law, mostly. Fascinating field. James looked like he might vomit on his own shoes. Well, he stammered, let me get you our best table. On the house, of course. That's very generous, I said. But I insist on paying. I always pay for what I take. The emphasis on take wasn't subtle. James caught it. We were seated at a prime table with a perfect view of the entire restaurant. I ordered the most expensive bottle of wine on the menu and made sure to laugh loudly at everything Maria said. She was actually funny, which made the performance effortless. Halfway through dinner, I excused myself to use the bathroom. On the way back, I stopped by the hostess stand where James was frantically trying to look busy. "Beautiful restaurant," I said quietly. "I can see why it's become so popular with married women looking for a little excitement." James went pale again. "Jonathan, I don't know what you think you know. I know exactly what I know, James. The question is whether you want to discuss it here in front of your daughter and your customers, or if you'd prefer to handle this like gentlemen." He glanced around the restaurant, clearly calculating the social and professional cost of a public confrontation. "What do you want?" "Nothing you haven't already given me," I said. "Just keep doing exactly what you've been doing. And James, when you see Scarlett next, tell her I said thanks for recommending Crimson. The atmosphere is perfect for intimate conversations." I walked back to my table where Maria was finishing her second glass of wine. "You're evil," she said admiringly. "I like that in a man. I prefer strategic. What's your next move?" I smiled and raised my glass. "Patience, Maria. Good things come to those who wait. Underscore. Underscore, 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 underscore. The surveillance footage was better than reality television. I sat in my home office at midnight, watching 3 weeks of my wife's double life unfold on high-definition monitors. Ron's tech guy had done incredible work. The cameras were invisible, the audio crystal clear, the timestamps perfectly synchronized. There was Scarlett on Tuesday morning, trying on 3 different outfits before settling on the black dress she'd wear to meet James. There was Willow helping her mother delete text messages and clear browser history. There was my wife practicing lies in our bathroom mirror, rehearsing the stories she'd tell me about working late or meeting friends. The worst part wasn't the deception. It was how happy she looked doing it. But the best part was yet to come. I opened my laptop and began uploading everything to a cloud storage account I'd created specifically for this purpose. Every video file, every audio recording, every photo and document that proved my wife's affair. All of it legally obtained, all of it admissible in court, all of it insurance against whatever came next. My phone rang. Scarlett's name appeared on the screen. "Hello, darling," I answered. "Jonathan, we need to talk." Her voice was strained, different from the confident woman who'd confronted me in the kitchen 3 weeks ago. "Of course, are you calling from James's apartment?" Silence. Then, "How did you—" "Lucky guess. What did you want to discuss?" "This isn't working. The arrangement, I mean. You're being impossible. I'm following the terms we agreed to. You wanted an open marriage with complete honesty. I'm simply ensuring that honesty goes both ways." "You're tracking my car!" "I'm protecting my assets. The car is in my name, Scarlett. I have every right to know where my property is being taken." More silence. I could hear James talking in the background, though I couldn't make out the words. "The postnup you're demanding is ridiculous," she said finally. "The postnup protects what I built before and during our marriage. If you're planning to stay married to me, it shouldn't matter. If you're planning to divorce me, well, then it matters very much. I'm not signing it. That's your choice. But until you do, you're living in my house under my rules. And Scarlett? Those rules are about to get much more specific." I hung up and immediately called Ron. "It's midnight on a Saturday," he answered. "This better be good." "She's refusing the postnup. Time for phase 2. I'll have the papers ready Monday morning. Jonathan? Yeah? You sure you want to do this? Once we file the motion, there's no going back." I looked at the surveillance monitors where my wife was probably telling her lover about our phone call. 22 years of marriage, and it had come to this. "Ron, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Underscore, 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 underscore." The eviction notice was posted on Monday morning. Not eviction from the house, that would come later. This was eviction from the fantasy that actions don't have consequences. Scarlett found the legal documents when she came home from her weekend with James. I was in the kitchen making coffee. Same granite countertop, same sub-zero refrigerator, same 22 years of married life. But everything had changed. "What is this?" She held up the papers with shaking hands. "Legal separation proceedings," I said calmly. Since you refused to sign the postnup, Ron filed a motion to divide our assets immediately. Everything gets frozen until the court makes a determination. Willow rushed into the kitchen, still wearing pajamas at 2 in the afternoon. Dad, what are you doing? Mom's crying. Your mother is experiencing the natural consequences of her choices. If she wanted to avoid this, she shouldn't have committed adultery. It's not adultery, Willow screamed. You agreed to an open marriage? I agreed to an open marriage with conditions. Your mother violated those conditions. Now she gets to experience what actual independence looks like. I poured my coffee and added cream, taking my time with each motion. The silence in the kitchen was deafening. The house goes into legal escrow pending asset division, I continued. The joint accounts are frozen. The credit cards are canceled. Your mother's monthly allowance ends today. Scarlett collapsed into a chair. You can't do this. I can, and I have. But here's the interesting part. I'm also filing for full ownership of the house based on the prenup and my sole financial contribution to the purchase and maintenance, which means you have 30 days to contest the motion or accept my buyout offer. I pulled a cashier's check from my pocket and set it on the counter. $50,000. Take it or leave it. Scarlett stared at the check like it was written in blood. $50,000? This house is worth $800,000. The house is worth $800,000. Your contribution to purchasing and maintaining it is worth exactly nothing. $50,000 is generous, considering you've been committing adultery in my home while I paid the bills. Willow grabbed the check. This is insane. Dad, you can't just steal Mom's home. I'm not stealing anything. I'm offering to buy out her interest in property that she never actually owned. She can take the $50,000, or she can hire a lawyer and try to prove she has any legal claim to assets she didn't pay for. I finished my coffee and rinsed the mug in the sink. Same ritual I'd performed every morning for 22 years. Oh, and Scarlett, I know about the pregnancy. The kitchen went dead silent. What pregnancy? Willow asked. Scarlett's face went white. Jonathan, I can explain. You're 3 months pregnant with James's baby. I know because I've been tracking your medical appointments along with everything else. Congratulations on the new addition to your modern family. Willow sank into a chair beside her mother. Mom, you're pregnant? It's complicated, Scarlett whispered. Actually, it's quite simple, I said. Your mother is having another man's baby while living in my house and spending my money. The only complicated part is figuring out how to spin that into something sympathetic. I headed toward the door, then stopped. The locks change tomorrow. If you want to stay here, you'll sign the postnup and the custody agreement Ron is preparing. If not, you'll take the $50,000 and find somewhere else to raise James's child. The slam of the kitchen door was becoming my signature exit. Underscore, 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 underscore. Ryan's call came that night. My brother had always been the charming one. The easy laugh and quick smile that made people forget he'd never held a job for more than 2 years or paid back a loan in his life. 3 years younger than me, but he'd somehow convinced our parents that I was the responsible one who should take care of everything while he followed his dreams. Those dreams had led him through art school, a failed photography business, a stint as a personal trainer, and most recently, a job selling insurance that he treated like a hobby. Johnny, he said, using the nickname I'd hated since childhood, I heard about you and Scarlett. What about us? Come on, man, this is a small town. Word gets around when Jonathan Archer starts playing hardball with his wife. I leaned back in my home office chair, surrounded by monitors showing empty rooms. Scarlett and Willow had gone somewhere after our kitchen confrontation, probably back to James's place. What do you want, Ryan? I want to help. You're my big brother. Family sticks together, right? Since when do you care about family loyalty? Since always. Look, I know we haven't been close lately, but blood is blood. And I think what Scarlett did to you is horrible. There was something in his voice, a tone I recognized from childhood when he'd broken something valuable and was trying to talk his way out of consequences. What did you do, Ryan? Nothing. Jesus, why do you always assume... What did you do? A long pause. I may have been seeing her before James, just a couple times. It didn't mean anything. The phone cracked in my grip. 22 years of marriage, and both my wife and my brother had betrayed me. The universe apparently had a sense of humor. How long? My voice was eerily calm. Just a few months. Maybe 6. Look, she was lonely. You were always working. One thing led to another. 6 months. Jonathan, you have to understand. I hung up. Then I called Ron. We need to accelerate the timeline, I said. What happened? My brother. He's been sleeping with my wife longer than James has. Ron whistled low. Jesus Christ, Jonathan. Your own brother? Family loyalty apparently runs in one direction. How fast can we move on the asset protection? Give me 24 hours. But Jonathan, this changes everything. We're not just protecting you from your wife anymore. We're protecting you from everyone. After I hung up, I sat in my empty house for a long time, thinking about choices and consequences and the price of trust. Outside, Boston glittered like broken glass against the dark harbor. My wife was pregnant with another man's child. My daughter thought I was an emotional abuser. My brother had been stabbing me in the back for half a year. But I still had the house. I still had my business. I still had the advantage. And I was just getting started. Underscore, 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 underscore. The barbecue party was Scarlett's idea. I want to tell everyone together, she said when she called on Thursday morning, about the baby, about our new arrangement. I think people will be more supportive if we present a united front. I almost laughed. A united front. Like we were business partners instead of a marriage that had imploded 3 weeks ago. Of course, I said. Saturday at 2? Perfect. I've already invited my sister and your parents. Oh, and Ryan said he'd come. It'll be nice to have family support during this transition. Ryan, my loving brother who'd been sleeping with my wife while offering me emotional support about her affair with James. The same brother who'd called himself my protector while systematically destroying my marriage. I'll handle the food, I said. You just focus on your announcement. Saturday morning, I fired up the gas grill and began preparing for the most important barbecue of my life. Burgers, hot dogs, corn on the cob, all the suburban classics for a suburban betrayal. By 2 o'clock, our backyard was full of people who had no idea they were about to witness a masterclass in public humiliation. My parents sat at the patio table, looking uncomfortable but trying to be supportive. My father had been a plumber his whole life, steady and reliable, the kind of man who believed in keeping your word and paying your debts. My mother had raised 3 boys and buried 1, and she had the kind of instinctive wisdom that comes from surviving genuine hardship. Scarlett's sister Amanda was there with her husband Pete, both of them looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Amanda had never liked me, mainly because I'd refused to loan Pete money for his various get-rich-quick schemes over the years. The neighbors came too, Bob and Susan from next door, the Hartmans from across the street, even old Mrs. Patterson, who'd lived in the neighborhood since the Nixon administration. Everyone drawn by the promise of free food and the possibility of witnessing drama. And Ryan, of course, my baby brother, looking nervous and drinking beer faster than usual. Scarlett waited until everyone had a plate of food before making her announcement. Jonathan and I wanted to gather everyone together, she began, her voice carrying that false confidence I'd learned to recognize. We have some news to share. She looked radiant in a yellow sundress that showed just the hint of a baby bump, glowing with the kind of happiness that comes from getting everything you want without paying the price for it. We're pregnant, she announced. The crowd erupted in congratulations. My mother cried and hugged Scarlett. My father shook my hand and said he was proud. The neighbors smiled and raised their beers in a toast. I let them celebrate for exactly 30 seconds. There's more, I said, my voice cutting through the celebration like a blade. The baby's father is here with us today. The backyard went silent except for the sound of the grill still hissing. Scarlett's smile froze. Jonathan, what are you... Would you like to tell them, Ryan, or should I? My brother went pale. His beer slipped from his hand and shattered on the concrete patio. What's going on? My mother asked. I walked over to Ryan, who was staring at me like I'd pulled a gun. My loving brother has been sleeping with my wife for the past 6 months. The baby Scarlett just announced, it's his. The silence was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop in the next county. That's not true, Ryan stammered. Jonathan, you're being crazy. The stress of the separation is making you paranoid. I pulled out my phone and played an audio recording. Ryan's voice clear as day. I love you, Scarlett. Jonathan never deserved you anyway. He's always been jealous of what we have. Scarlett's voice responded. I know, baby. After the divorce, we can be together properly. Just you, me, and our child. The recording played for 30 more seconds, detailing their plans to take half my assets in the divorce and use the money to start a new life together. Ryan's voice explaining how he'd been feeding Scarlett information about my business dealings so she could maximize her settlement. When it ended, the silence was complete. My mother looked at Ryan with disgust. "How could you do this to your brother?" My father stood up slowly. "Get out. Both of you. Get out of my sight." But I wasn't done. "There's one more thing," I said, pulling out another piece of paper. "Ryan, you might want to sit down for this." "Jonathan, please," Scarlett begged. "Don't do this here." "I had a paternity test done," I continued. "Funny thing about modern DNA testing. You can get results from hair samples, old toothbrushes, things like that. Very convenient when you want to test the parentage of an unborn child." Ryan was shaking now. "Jonathan, stop. The baby isn't Ryan's either." The crowd gasped. Scarlett went white. "According to the test, there's a 99.7% chance that the father is James Morrison, owner of Crimson Restaurant. You know, the man who's been publicly dating my wife while she was secretly sleeping with my brother." I looked at Ryan, who had collapsed into a patio chair. "So you betrayed your brother, destroyed a 22-year marriage, and broke up our family for a woman who was playing you the same way she was playing me." The party was over. People began leaving in clusters, whispering among themselves and avoiding eye contact with anyone in the Archer family. My parents left without saying goodbye to Ryan or Scarlett. The neighbors scattered like leaves in a strong wind. Amanda grabbed Pete's arm and practically dragged him out of the backyard. Within 20 minutes, only 4 people remained: me, Scarlett, Ryan, and Willow, who had arrived just in time to witness the complete destruction of our family's reputation. "Dad," Willow said quietly, "was any of that true?" "Every word." Scarlett was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "You bastard. You destroyed everything." "I destroyed nothing," I said. "I simply told the truth. You and Ryan destroyed everything months ago. I just made sure everyone else knew about it." Ryan stood up on unsteady legs. "Johnny, I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen." "Yes, you did. You meant for all of it to happen. You just didn't mean to get caught." I walked over to the grill and turned off the gas. The hissing stopped and the backyard became eerily quiet. "Here's what happens next," I said. "Scarlett, you have 24 hours to sign the postnup and accept my custody terms for the child that isn't mine. If you don't, I file for divorce on Monday morning with every piece of evidence I've collected over the past month." I turned to Ryan. "And you get to live with the fact that everyone in this family now knows exactly what kind of person you are. Mom and Dad are never going to forgive you. I'm never going to forgive you. And Scarlett is never going to forgive you for not being the father of her baby." I started walking toward the house, then stopped. "Oh, and the locks changed this morning. Don't bother trying to get back in. Underscore, 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 underscore." Scarlett signed the papers on Sunday night. She came to the house, my house, with James and a lawyer I didn't recognize. Some kid fresh out of law school who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else than sitting across from Ron Jeremy in a contract negotiation. We met in my dining room, around the mahogany table I'd bought to celebrate my first $1 million real estate deal. The irony wasn't lost on me. Signing papers to end my marriage at the same table where we'd celebrated 22 years of anniversaries. "The terms are non-negotiable," Ron said, sliding the documents across the polished wood. "Mrs. Archer retains no claim to the house, the business assets, or the investment properties. In exchange, Mr. Archer agrees not to seek damages for adultery or pursue criminal charges for financial fraud." James shifted uncomfortably. "Criminal charges?" "Using joint credit cards to fund an extramarital affair constitutes theft of marital assets," Ron explained cheerfully. "The hotel receipts, restaurant bills, and gift purchases total just over $12,000. Easily a felony in Massachusetts." Scarlett's lawyer, his name was David something, and he looked about 14 years old, whispered frantically in her ear. She nodded reluctantly. "And the child?" David asked. "Mr. Archer waives all parental rights and responsibilities," Ron said. "No custody, no visitation, no financial support. In exchange, his name doesn't appear on the birth certificate, and Mrs. Archer agrees never to pursue paternity claims." "That's what I want," Scarlett said quietly. It was the first time she'd spoken since arriving. I studied my wife's face across the table. 3 weeks ago, she'd been radiant with the excitement of her new life. Now she looked exhausted, defeated, older than her 42 years. "There's one more condition," I said. Everyone looked at me. The boutique. You're buying it from me for fair market value, which my accountant estimates at $45,000. I'll carry the note at 6% interest. I don't have $45,000, Scarlett said. That's between you and your boyfriend. But the boutique was purchased with my money and I want to be compensated. James leaned forward. We can work something out. I'm sure you can. I smiled at him. After all, you're about to have a family to support. Better start thinking like a businessman instead of a player. The signing took an hour. Every page initialed, every clause agreed to, every bridge thoroughly burned. When it was over, Scarlett was no longer my wife in anything but name until the divorce was finalized. She stood to leave, then paused at the dining room door. Jonathan, I want you to know, I did love you. For most of our marriage, I really did love you. I know, I said. That's what makes this so much worse. After they left, Ron poured himself a whiskey from the bar cart. How do you feel? He asked. I looked around the dining room, my dining room, with its expensive furniture and original paintings and view of the harbor that had cost me 22 years of marriage to afford. Free, I said. Underscore, 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 underscore. The next 6 weeks passed in a blur of legal paperwork and strategic demolition. Scarlett moved in with James, taking only her clothes and personal items. Everything else, furniture, art, jewelry, even the dishes, stayed in the house under the terms of our separation agreement. Willow tried to play mediator for about a week before giving up and moving back to her apartment near Emerson College. She still called me an emotional abuser, but she also started accepting the monthly allowance I'd been depositing in her account since she turned 18. Ryan disappeared entirely. My parents told me he'd moved to California, but I didn't ask for details and they didn't offer them. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. The divorce proceedings moved with surprising speed. Massachusetts had no-fault divorce laws, which meant Scarlett couldn't be penalized for adultery, but she also couldn't claim victimhood. When you agree to an open marriage and then violate your own terms, the court has very little sympathy. I kept busy by expanding my real estate business. 3 new properties under contract, 2 renovation projects that would double in value, and a commercial development deal that would set me up for the next decade. But the real satisfaction came from watching the consequences unfold around me. James's restaurant started struggling almost immediately. Word travels fast in Boston's food scene, and the story of the owner who stole another man's wife didn't play well with the kind of clientele that keeps upscale restaurants profitable. Reservations dropped, reviews turned negative. The Boston Magazine feature that had originally attracted Scarlett's attention ran a follow-up piece that was decidedly less flattering. Scarlett's boutique barely limped along. Without my financial backing, she couldn't afford the prime location or the high-end inventory that had made it successful. She moved to a smaller space in a strip mall and started selling discount clothing instead of designer pieces. The pregnancy became complicated. Stress, the doctor said. Scarlett was put on bed rest, which meant she couldn't work, which meant James had to support 2 failing businesses and a pregnant girlfriend who spent most of her time crying about everything she'd lost. I learned all of this through Boston's remarkably efficient gossip network. Real estate is a relationship business, and people love to share information about dramatic personal implosions. But I wasn't satisfied with passive observation. I had bigger plans. Underscore. Underscore, 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 underscore. The charity gala was held at the Four Seasons. 200 of Boston's most prominent business leaders gathered to raise money for veterans' causes. I'd been attending for 5 years, usually with Scarlett as my date, always writing a generous check to support military families. This year, I attended alone and with a very specific agenda. The guest list included 3 restaurant critics, the editor of Boston Magazine, a city councilman who controlled liquor licenses, and the landlord who owned the building where Crimson was located. I worked the room like a political candidate, shaking hands and making small talk and gradually steering every conversation toward the same topic: accountability in business relationships. You know what I admire most about successful people? I said to Margaret Walsh, the restaurant critic for the Boston Globe. They understand that reputation is everything. One bad decision can destroy decades of hard work. Absolutely, Margaret agreed. I've seen restaurants go from 5 stars to closing in 6 months because of personal scandals. It's tragic, really. Take that new place, Crimson. Beautiful restaurant, excellent food, but the owner's personal life has become such a distraction. Hard to enjoy a romantic dinner when you're wondering if the proprietor is going to steal your spouse. Margaret laughed. I heard about that situation. Messy divorce? Among other things, the wife was sleeping with both the restaurant owner and her husband's brother. Quite the scandal. Makes you wonder about judgment, doesn't it? If someone makes such poor personal decisions, how can you trust their professional judgment? Similar conversations happened throughout the evening. Always casual, always factual, always devastating. By the end of the night, I'd planted seeds of doubt about James's character with every person who had the power to affect his business. Not slander. I never said anything that wasn't true. Just strategic information sharing among concerned citizens. The results were swift and brutal. Margaret's review of Crimson appeared in the Globe 3 days later. She praised the food but questioned the atmosphere of instability and suggested that diners might want to consider whether management's focus on personal drama detracts from the dining experience. The liquor license renewal that James had been counting on was suddenly tied up in bureaucratic delays. His landlord began making noises about morality clauses in the lease agreement. 2 of his investors pulled out of a planned expansion, citing concerns about reputational risk. Within 2 weeks of the charity gala, Crimson was hemorrhaging money and credibility at an alarming rate. I felt no guilt whatsoever. Underscore, 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 underscore. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning in October. Jonathan, we need to talk. Scarlett's voice was different, desperate, defeated, completely stripped of the confidence she displayed 6 months earlier. About what? James is losing the restaurant. We can't pay rent. The baby's due in 6 weeks, and I don't have health insurance because the boutique is failing. I sipped my coffee and watched Boston Harbor through my office window. Container ships moved slowly across gray water, carrying cargo to destinations unknown. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be cruel. I know you're angry, but I'm asking for help. For the baby. The baby that isn't mine? The baby I have no legal responsibility for? That baby? Silence, then crying. Scarlett had always been a strategic crier, but this sounded genuine. I made mistakes, she said. Terrible mistakes, but I can't undo them. I can only try to survive them. What do you want from me, Scarlett? A loan. $50,000 to keep us afloat until after the baby comes. I'll pay you back, I swear. I almost laughed. You want me to loan you money to support the child you conceived with another man while married to me? Please, Jonathan. You're the only person I can ask. What about Ryan? Your other lover? He's gone. Moved to Los Angeles and won't return my calls. I think he's embarrassed about the paternity situation. Of course he was. Ryan had always been good at disappearing when consequences arrived. And James, the father of your child? He's barely keeping his head above water. The restaurant might close next month. I finished my coffee and set the mug on my desk. Scarlett, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. Okay. 6 months ago, you sat in my kitchen and told me you wanted to modernize our marriage. You wanted independence and excitement and freedom from conventional thinking. You got exactly what you asked for. Jonathan, you're experiencing the natural consequences of your choices. James is experiencing the natural consequences of his choices. Ryan is experiencing the natural consequences of his choices. This is what independence looks like. But the baby is not my responsibility. You made very sure of that. I hung up. Then I called Ron. Time for the final move, I said. Underscore, 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 underscore. The foreclosure notice was posted on Crimson's door on Halloween morning. I knew because I owned the building. The purchase had been arranged through a shell company that Ron had set up months earlier. The previous owner, a real estate investment group from New York, had been happy to sell when I offered 15% above market value with a cash closing in 2 weeks. James never saw it coming. The building had been purchased, the lease transferred to my company, and the rent increased to market rates, which happened to be exactly double what James had been paying under his sweetheart deal with the previous landlord. When he couldn't make the new payment, eviction proceedings began immediately. 3 months later, Crimson was closed, James was bankrupt, and the space was being renovated for a new tenant I'd already selected. A family restaurant owned by a veteran who specialized in authentic Italian cuisine. Scarlett called me the day the eviction notice was posted. You bought the building. she said. It wasn't a question. I bought an undervalued property in a prime location. Smart business. You destroyed us. I destroyed nothing. I simply stopped protecting you from market forces. If James had been a better businessman, he could have survived a rent increase. If you had been a better wife, none of this would have been necessary. The baby's due in 2 weeks. Congratulations. Jonathan, please, I'm begging you, help us. I looked out my office window at Boston Harbor, where the same container ships continued their eternal journey across dark water. You know what the difference is between you and me, Scarlett. I understand that choices have consequences. You thought you could have everything without paying for anything, but the house always wins. What does that mean? It means you gambled with our marriage and lost. You bet that I would be too weak or too conventional to fight back. You were wrong. I hung up for the last time. Underscore, 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 underscore. The baby was born on November 15th, a healthy boy they named Michael. I learned this from Willow, who had started visiting her mother despite our estrangement. He's beautiful, Dad, she said when she called to tell me. He has Mom's eyes. I'm sure he does. Don't you want to know anything else about him? Where they're living, how Mom's doing? No. God, you're cold. He's an innocent baby. He didn't choose any of this. You're absolutely right. He's innocent. That's why I made sure his father has no legal claim on him, and his mother has no legal claim on me. He deserves better than to be trapped in the middle of adult mistakes. Willow was quiet for a long moment. Mom's working at a diner now. James is doing construction. They're renting a 1-bedroom apartment in Southie. Good for them. Honest work builds character. How can you be so heartless? I'm not heartless, Willow. I'm just done. Your mother wanted independence. She got it. Now she gets to learn what independence actually costs. And what about you? Are you happy living alone in that big house with all your money and your perfect revenge? I considered the question seriously. Was I happy? I was successful. My business was thriving. My investments were performing well. I had complete control over my life for the first time in 22 years. But happy? That was more complicated. I'm satisfied, I said finally. That's not the same thing. No, it's not, but it's enough. Underscore, 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 underscore. Christmas came and went without celebration. I spent the day alone in my house, reading financial reports and planning acquisitions for the new year. Willow invited me to dinner with friends, but I declined. My parents invited me to their traditional Christmas Eve gathering, but I sent a gift, and my regrets. I preferred solitude to sympathy. On New Year's Eve, I attended a party at Ron's house in Beacon Hill, a gathering of lawyers and judges and successful business people, all of them divorced or never married, all of them happy to celebrate another year of profitable independence. You look good, Ron said, finding me on his terrace overlooking the common. Better than you did 6 months ago. I feel better. Any regrets about how things played out? I considered the question while watching fireworks explode over Boston Harbor. Below us, couples walked hand in hand through the public garden, believing in love and forever and other beautiful lies. No regrets, I said, just lessons learned. Such as, trust is earned, not given. Loyalty is rare, not expected. And revenge is a dish best served with legal documentation. Ron laughed. You should write a book. Maybe I will. The fireworks reached their crescendo, filling the sky with light and noise and celebration. When they ended, the city was quiet again, just the distant sound of traffic and the eternal movement of water against stone. I raised my glass to the harbor and made a toast to the new year. To independence, I said. Underscore, 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 underscore. Spring brought news of changes. James found steady work with a construction company and was slowly paying off his debts. Scarlett had been promoted to assistant manager at the diner and was taking night classes in business administration. They'd moved to a 2-bedroom apartment and were talking about getting married once her divorce was finalized. I learned all of this from Willow, who had apparently decided to rebuild relationships with both her parents despite our mutual disappointment in each other. They're doing better, she told me during one of our monthly dinners. Mom seems happier than she's been in years. Good for her. She asks about you sometimes. I'm sure she does. She wants to apologize for everything. I cut my steak and chewed thoughtfully. We were eating at Legal Seafoods, the same restaurant where I'd helped James plan his business strategy 2 years earlier. The irony was intentional. "There's nothing to apologize for," I said finally. "She made her choices. I made mine. We're both living with the consequences." "Don't you miss her, even a little?" "I miss the woman I thought I married, but that woman apparently never existed." Willow picked at her salad. "You know, I've been thinking about what happened, about the whole situation. And I think I was wrong about some things, about calling you emotionally abusive, about the way you handled everything." I raised an eyebrow. "That's quite an admission." "I'm studying psychology, remember? I've learned more about manipulation and gaslighting and emotional abuse in the past year than I knew when I was taking Mom's side." "What changed your mind?" "Therapy, mostly. My professor recommended it after I told her about our family situation. Turns out I had some issues to work through about loyalty and boundaries and taking responsibility for your actions." I smiled for the first time in months. "And what did you learn?" "That Mom manipulated all of us, that she used me to help her lie to you, that she convinced me you were the problem when really she was the one breaking our family apart." "And how do you feel about that?" "Angry, confused, guilty for believing her." Willow met my eyes. "And sorry for the things I said to you." "Apology accepted." Just like that. "Willow, you were 23 years old and caught in an impossible situation. Your mother spent months manipulating you into taking her side against me. The fact that you figured it out on your own shows wisdom and integrity. I love you, Dad. I love you too." It was the first time either of us had said those words since the kitchen confrontation 8 months earlier. Underscore, 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 summer arrived with an offer I couldn't refuse. Maria Santos called on a Tuesday morning to invite me to dinner at her new apartment in Back Bay. We'd been dating casually since the night at Crimson, nothing serious but enjoyable enough to continue. "I have something to tell you," she said over wine and takeout from her favorite Italian place. "Good something or bad something?" "That depends on your perspective." She smiled and pulled out a legal document. "I've been offered a partnership at Patterson and Associates, full equity stake, my name on the letterhead, everything I've worked for since law school." "That's fantastic news. Congratulations." "There's a catch. The partnership requires me to relocate to their San Francisco office. They want me to head up their West Coast family law division." I felt something that might have been disappointment, though I couldn't be sure. Maria and I had an arrangement, not a relationship. She was beautiful and intelligent and ambitious, exactly the kind of woman who deserved a better man than one still carrying the wreckage of a destroyed marriage. "When do you leave?" "That's what I wanted to discuss with you." She leaned forward. "Come with me." "To San Francisco?" "Why not? Your business is successful enough to run from anywhere. You could expand into West Coast real estate. We could see where this goes without the shadow of your ex-wife hanging over everything." It was a generous offer. A chance to start fresh in a new city with a woman who understood exactly who I was and what I'd been through. "I can't," I said. "Why not?" "Because I'm not done here yet." "Done with what? Your revenge?" "Jonathan, you won. Scarlett lost everything. James lost everything. Your brother is gone. What more is there to accomplish?" I thought about that question for a long time. What was there left to accomplish? "I need to rebuild," I said finally. "Not just my life, but my reputation, my relationships, my family." "You can do that in San Francisco." "No, I can't. Running away from problems doesn't solve them. I learned that from 22 years of marriage." Maria nodded slowly. "I understand. But Jonathan, don't spend so much time looking backward that you miss what's in front of you." She was right, of course. But I wasn't ready to move forward yet. Maybe I never would be. We spent the rest of the evening talking about her new opportunity and my stubborn attachment to a city full of painful memories. When I left, we both knew it was goodbye. "Take care of yourself," she said at her door. "You too. San Francisco is lucky to get you." "For what it's worth, I think you're making a mistake." "Probably. But they're my mistakes to make." I walked home through the quiet streets of Boston, past the restaurants where I'd eaten with Scarlett, past the shops where we'd bought furniture for our house, past the life we'd built together, and then systematically destroyed. But for the first time in months, I wasn't angry about any of it. I was just tired. Underscore, 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 underscore. The final confrontation came in September, exactly 1 year after Scarlett's kitchen confession. I was working late in my office when security called to say there was a woman in the lobby asking to see me. No appointment, no business card, just a plea to talk. I knew who it was before they said her name. Scarlett looked different when she walked into my office. Thinner, older, wearing clothes that had seen better days. Her hair was shorter, her makeup minimal, her entire appearance stripped of the glamour that had defined her for as long as I'd known her. But her eyes were clearer than they'd been in years. "Thank you for seeing me," she said, sitting in the chair across from my desk. "What do you want, Scarlett?" "To apologize, and to tell you that you were right about everything." I leaned back in my chair and waited. "I was selfish," she continued. "Entitled. I thought I could have everything without giving up anything. I thought you would always be there, no matter how I treated you. And now? Now I understand what I lost. Not just the house or the money or the lifestyle. I lost the best man I've ever known. Flattery isn't going to change anything. I'm not trying to change anything. I'm just trying to take responsibility for my actions, for the first time in my adult life." She looked around my office, taking in the success that surrounded me. "You were always the strong one, the provider, the one who made everything possible. And I repaid that by betraying you in the worst way imaginable." "Yes, you did. I know there's no forgiveness for what I did. I'm not asking for that. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. What marriage means, what loyalty means, what I threw away. Is that all?" "No." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small, wrapped box. "This is yours." Inside was her wedding ring, the 3-carat princess cut that had cost me more than my first car. "I should have returned this months ago," she said. "I kept telling myself I was holding on to it for sentimental reasons, but really I think I was hoping. I don't know what I was hoping." I took the ring and set it on my desk without looking at it. "How's Michael?" "Beautiful, perfect. The best thing I've ever done." Her voice softened. "He has James's smile, but my stubborn streak. I'm already worried about his teenage years." "And James?" "Working hard, growing up finally, becoming the man I thought he was when I met him." "Are you happy?" She considered the question. "I'm learning to be. Real happiness, not the artificial high I was chasing when I destroyed our marriage. It's harder than I expected. Good things usually are." We sat in silence for several minutes. Outside my office windows, Boston Harbor glittered in the late afternoon sun. "I should go," Scarlett said finally. "I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, and that I hope someday you can find someone who deserves you." She stood to leave, then paused at the door. "Jonathan, for what it's worth, I think you handled everything exactly right. I needed to lose everything to understand what I'd had." After she left, I sat alone in my office holding her wedding ring. 22 years of marriage reduced to 3 carats of compressed carbon and a few grams of platinum. I should have felt victorious. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt empty. Underscore, 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 underscore. The house was too big for one person. I realized this on a cold October evening as I walked through rooms that hadn't been used in months. The dining room where we'd signed our separation agreement, the kitchen where everything started, the master bedroom that still smelled faintly of Scarlett's perfume despite months of professional cleaning. Too many memories, too much space, too much silence. I called a real estate agent the next morning. "Are you sure about this?" Ron asked when I told him. "That house is your biggest asset. It's also my biggest burden." "Where will you go?" "I'm looking at a condo downtown. Harbor view, modern kitchen, low maintenance. Everything I actually need and nothing I don't." "Sounds lonely." "Sounds peaceful." The house sold in 3 days to a young couple with 2 children and big dreams about their future together. I watched them walk through the rooms that had contained my entire adult life, pointing out changes they wanted to make, spaces they wanted to renovate, memories they wanted to create. I hoped they would be happier than Scarlett and I had been. The closing was scheduled for December 15th, which gave me 2 months to pack up 22 years of accumulated life. Some things would go to storage, some to charity, some to the dump. Most of it was just stuff anyway, furniture and dishes and decorations that had seemed important at the time but now felt like props from someone else's play. I kept the important things. Photos of Willow at various ages, books I'd actually read, a few pieces of art that meant something to me personally. The bare minimum required for a new life in a smaller space. The rest could go. underscore 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 moving day arrived with the first snow of winter. I stood in the empty house one last time, looking at bare walls and vacant rooms that had once been the center of my universe. The granite countertops that had cost $16,000, the Sub-Zero refrigerator that had been my pride and joy, the view of Boston Harbor that I'd worked so hard to afford. All of it meaningless now. My phone rang, Willow's name on the screen. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Like I'm closing a chapter?" "Good chapter or bad chapter?" "Complicated chapter, but necessary. I'm proud of you, Dad. I know this wasn't easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is. Will you be okay? In the new place, I mean. It's a big change." I looked out the kitchen window one last time at the harbor where container ships continued their eternal journey across dark water. "I'll be fine, Willow. Better than fine. Promise?" "Promise." After I hung up, I did one final walkthrough of the house that had defined my marriage and my identity for more than 2 decades. Each room held memories, some good, some terrible, all of them part of the story that had brought me to this moment. In the master bedroom, I could still see Scarlett getting ready for parties, trying on different outfits and asking for my opinion. In the kitchen, I could still hear our early morning conversations over coffee, planning our days and sharing our dreams. In Willow's old room, I could still picture her as a child, reading books and playing with toys and believing that her parents would love each other forever. Those people were gone now. That marriage was over. That family had been destroyed by choices and consequences and the simple truth that some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. But I was still here. Scarred, certainly. Changed, absolutely. But still standing. The moving truck was loaded and ready to go. The new owners were scheduled to take possession at noon. My attorney had the final paperwork. Everything was finished except for walking out the door. I took one last look around the empty house, then turned off the lights and walked away from 22 years of my life. The drive to my new condo took 15 minutes through downtown Boston traffic. 15 minutes to travel from the past to whatever came next. The condo was smaller but brighter, with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over Boston Harbor. The same view I'd had from the house, but different somehow. Cleaner, less complicated. The movers finished unloading by evening, my entire life reduced to a few dozen boxes and some furniture that looked strange in new surroundings. I opened a bottle of wine, a good Cabernet I'd been saving for a special occasion, and stood at my new windows watching the harbor. Container ships moved slowly across dark water, carrying cargo to destinations unknown, following routes that had been traveled for centuries. Some journeys ended where they began. Others led to entirely new places. I raised my glass to the harbor and made a toast to the future, whatever it might hold. "To new beginnings," I said. Behind me, boxes waited to be unpacked and furniture waited to be arranged. The work of building a new life in a new space with hard-earned wisdom about trust and loyalty and the price of betrayal. But that work could wait until tomorrow. Tonight, I was exactly where I belonged.